Good evening. Call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. If you're able, please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a roll call, please?
Johnson.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Mikulski.
Here.
Polika.
Here.
Leaksmay.
Here. Now approval of the agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move we approve the agenda with one change. I would request that we remove item 7D from the agenda and send it back to the city manager's office for further discussion.
Support.
Johnson.
Roll call. Oh,
I'm
thank you.
sorry, could, clarification? For which item?
7D.
Oh, I thought you said 7G.
No, D.
Okay, 7D, thank you.
Johnson.
Yes.
Mikulski.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Polika.
Yes.
Leaksmay.
Yes. Okay. And now we're moving on to the presentation where we will be talking about consolidation of Ferndale's 9 precincts into 6 precincts. And our City Clerk Dean will lead the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just here to present on the precinct consolidation / reduction that was approved by our election commission last week to reduce the number of precincts we have in the city of Ferndale from 9 precincts down to 6 precincts. Just to give you a little bit of background on the precinct situation here in Ferndale currently, we have 17,000 registered voters, so roughly 17,000 registered voters here in Ferndale. As you can see from this map, this is our current map, the 9 precincts. You can see precinct 1 and 4 vote just with one precinct, but the other precincts all sort of vote in clusters. So precincts 2, 3, and 9 all vote at Ferndale High School. 5 and 8 vote at the library, and precincts 6 and 7 vote at the Free Methodist Church. This will matter here in just a moment. So there have been some recent changes to election laws that have sort of impacted the way in which voters prefer to vote. They use different methods of voting, such as early voting and mail voting, essentially. The first is Proposal 3 of 2018. Voters voted this in, which is no reason absentee voting. People can request an absentee ballot, and they don't need to provide us with a reason. They don't need to be a certain age. Anybody can request an absentee ballot for any election. So this we started seeing an uptick of people starting to vote by mail after this. Then Proposal 2 of 2022, also voted in by the voters, had some major changes as well. The first is 9 days of in-person early voting. This law requires us to offer 9 days of in-person early voting for all state and federal elections. We have partnered with the City of Hazel Park, Royal Oak Township, and Oakland County to also offer this for local elections, just to sort of prevent any sort of confusion with our voters. That proposal also created and established a permanent absentee ballot list. This means that anybody can essentially be put onto this list and just automatically get an absentee ballot for every election. They don't need to opt into ballots for elections throughout the year like was required before, though we do still offer the permanent absentee application list at this time. That permanent absentee ballot list has about 5,400 voters on it. Just to sort of give you reference, in the 2024 presidential election, we had about 6,400 people vote by mail. So you don't have to be on this list to still obtain an absentee ballot. And then finally, MCL 168.658, Michigan Compiled Law of 2023, the state legislature passed a law that allowed for precincts to have increase 2999 registered voters to 4999 registered voters per precinct. So we could have more voters in one precinct. All right, so some shifts in voting methods since 2018. As you can see from this map, this has 14 elections since August of 2018. You can see, if you could focus mainly on that dark green line right there in the center, or that kind of leads to the center. Back in August of 2018, which would have been a midterm election for a gubernatorial race, we had about 79% of people showing up on election day to vote and cast their ballot in person. As time has progressed, you can see that number drop down all the way to 34% for the November 2024 election. Those other two lines, the orange line there shows you the absentee or the mail voters. You can see there's been an uptick in that. Folks are starting to vote by absentee mail at a lot larger numbers. And then that red line on the bottom is going to show you the early in-person voting. This wasn't even offered until November 2023. For the first couple elections, we were only having about 1 or 2% of total ballots cast, actually cast at the early voting site. In November 2024, that number jumped up to 18%. I think there was a lot of push from our local communications department as well as the state of Michigan to try to get people to start voting early at the in-person site at the Hazel Park Community Center. So again, you can see that green bar has dropped significantly over the last 6 years or so. And so basically, it kind of suggests that folks are choosing to vote by other methods rather than simply just voting in person on election day. So for the need or demand to reduce the precincts, there are a few reasons why we're doing this. One is personnel paid downtime. So when we have 9 precincts, we have to staff 9 precincts. The law requires it. And throughout the day, during these small elections, there's a lot of sitting around, just kind of twiddling their thumbs. It's no fault of their own, but it's just kind of how the law works. And so by reducing the number of precincts, we have a lot less of this. We have more people essentially going to the same sort of locations, and we don't need to hire as many people for that. The flow, it's a tight space at the Ferndale Library. We currently have 2 precincts, precincts 5 and 8 at the library, and to put 2 different tables, 2 tabulators, which require 10 feet of space around those tabulators, there's not a lot of space in that room, so kind of reducing it down to 1 precinct would be very helpful for us. And then finally, the flow of the Ferndale High School, just having a reduction of 3 down to 2 precincts at that location would be very helpful. A lot of folks will show up and not know which precinct they're in, and so just being able to channel them into 2 different lines rather than 3 different lines is very helpful. We have, starting last year, we've brought forward an additional laptop at each one of our precincts as well, and so we have 2 lines for each precinct rather than just the 1 line which we've had traditionally in the past prior to 2024. So big question is the projected savings. So regarding the personnel costs at these polling locations or these precincts, we estimate, and these are probably pretty conservative as well, just the cost to have election workers present there, it's going to be a reduction of about $3,300 for a small election, and then about $6,700 for a large election. Just to put this into context, we had 4 elections last year, so it'd be quite a bit of savings for taxpayers in the city of Ferndale. Regarding equipment, we are set to be due to replace our election equipment in 2027. This is the same for every municipality across the state of Michigan. We don't know at this point how much money the state's going to offer us to replace our equipment. We're hoping most of it, if not all of it. What was required in 2017 was that they required the cities and municipalities to pay for extended warranties on all that equipment, which was about $2,500 per piece of equipment. If it's a similar sort of setup in 2027, it would save us roughly $7,500 for those 3 fewer tabulators that would be required. And then with the tabulators and with the voter assist terminals, there's all this miscellaneous equipment that comes along with it. The extension cords, tabulator stands, voter assist tabulator stands, voter assist tabulator printers, and printer tables. So all this stuff would not be required for us to purchase additional. And so we think this is a great way to sort of help cut down costs in our department. And then finally, equipment testing. So required equipment testing, every single election that we have to test all of our election equipment prior to every single election. It's about $180 per tabulator for us to test each piece of equipment. So that's roughly $500 in reduction per election. Again, last year with 4 elections, that'd be a reduction of about $2,000. So there are some considerable savings that we will see just by reducing the number of precincts that we have. So regarding the impact of voters, so if you look at this map here, these are precincts 7, 8, and 9. Just to remind you, precincts 6 and 7 currently vote at the Ferndale Free Methodist Church. Precincts 2, 3, and 9 currently vote at Ferndale High School. And then precincts 5 and 8 currently vote at the library, and precinct 4 votes at University High School. So what we're doing is with precinct 7, they're going to just be merged with precinct 6, and I'll show you a map here in a second. So they're still voting at the exact same location. The precinct number is just changing. Same thing with 2, 3, 9. We're splitting precinct 9 up with precincts 2 and 3. Same exact location. They're still going to be voting at Ferndale High School. The bottom half of precinct 8, that's south of 9 Mile, those folks will still be voting at the Ferndale Library. Anybody north of that line will be the only voters who are impacted at the actual physical location. Those voters will start voting at University High School. We have about 600 active voters in that precinct. Sorry, in that area within that precinct. So this is a map of the new 6 precincts that we have now. It'll range between 2,400 and 3,600 voters per precinct. Keep in mind, this isn't 3,600 people showing up on election day. On a good election, we're looking at 76% turnout, and then of that, as we saw, only 34% of that 76% actually showing up on election day. So a lot of folks are voting, again, by mail and early in-person voting, and then some folks just don't vote at all. So for the next steps for the city clerk's office, we are going to send this information over to the state. They change that information in the qualified voter file, which is the state's voter registration database. And then we will mail ID cards to all impacted voters, letting them know that either A, your precinct has changed, or B, your precinct and your polling location has changed. So that way voters will be informed with all of that. We're going to work with the DPW to update signage out at polling locations. And then finally, thanks to the communications department, Riley here has helped me update the website, and then she will be sending out some social media blasts actually during this meeting tonight. So that way voters will be informed of all the changes. So if any voter or anybody has any questions, you can certainly email the elections department here, elections@ferndalemi.gov, or myself at dlent@ferndalemi.gov, or call me directly at 248-336-4366. Otherwise, if I have any questions from council. All right, thank you.
No suggested action for that, so we are moving on to now call to audience, where I invite anyone in the audience to come to the podium to speak on anything on or off the agenda, and just state your, hello, hi there, state your name, title, and/or address, and we start now.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor. Pleasure to see you and distinguished members of council, municipal staff. My name is Andy Meisner, and had the pleasure of representing Ferndale in the State House of Representatives, along with Pleasant Ridge, Hazel Park, Huntington Woods, Oak Park, and Berkeley. My mom's a mayor in Oak Park these days, so I got to give them a little plug. And then had the pleasure of representing Oakland County as the county treasurer for 12 years. I left county government a couple years ago and started a project that's really focused on building out the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Oakland County. So what does that mean? When somebody gets the idea that they want to start a small business, whether it's a business or even social entrepreneurship, they have to have access to capital. And, sometimes the larger financial institutions are less willing to look at some of those smaller loans. And so I started to study the model of a community bank, which I like to say kind of has the heart of a credit union, but the lending savvy of a financial institution that's a little bit more traditional. Back in June of 2023, Community Unity Bank, or CUB, was approved as only the second new bank in Michigan. We service Oakland County. We're located a little bit up the road on Woodward Avenue, and we want to be a resource to the residents of Ferndale if they're looking for a commercial loan or really any kind of financial literacy assistance or just kind of consultation. We're available, and we want to be a part of that ecosystem. In addition, a number of governments work with financial institutions. When I was county treasurer, I managed funds, about $1.5 billion for the county. When I became treasurer, I opened up our investment policy to include credit unions, which I think can be a great option. We were the first county to do deposits with credit unions, and we offer those depository services. Had the pleasure of meeting with Mr. Whitfield, your very capable finance director, and also wanted to kind of introduce CUB, that's what we go by, CUB, Community Unity Bank, as a potential partner to help serve some of the depository needs of the city. And with that, I want to thank each of you for your service. I want to thank Ferndale for being awesome. I still own a house at on East Drayton, and this is a really special place. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy.
Good evening, council members. My name is Mara Livesey. I've been a resident and homeowner of Ferndale since 2019, and I recently joined the Ferndale Inclusion Network. And so I'm here today because I know that you have upcoming a vote on the flock cameras, and I want you to consider limiting, or best case scenario, not renewing the flock cameras in our city. My most recent concern is the way that the federal government and the Trump administration could use the data that we collect, because this data isn't just in our community, it's sent to flock and stored there for some time, right? And so we know that the Trump administration has prioritized rescinding executive orders, such as those promoting racial equity, those supporting underserved communities, preventing gender and sexual orientation-based discrimination. And we also know that ICE raids are starting nationwide. And so I want us to consider how some of these federal level things might impact us here if we're collecting this type of data in our community. And I want to ask you to do what you can proactively to prevent this in our community so that our neighbors aren't impacted negatively by their data being collected by these cameras. And I want to just point out one thing that the Vice President of External Affairs of Flock is quoted as saying in the Guardian article. So he said, Flock's mission as a business is to eliminate crime. So if, for example, a national abortion ban is enacted, or if gender-affirming care is criminalized, these will be crimes, right? And so Flock data could be used against people seeking these types of care. So please, protect our rights as Ferndalians and vote not to renew Flock. Thank you for listening.
Good evening to council and everyone here. My name is Prasad Vedagopal. I live at 1425 West Troy Street. I'm here also to speak on behalf of the Ferndale Inclusion Network on the question of flock safety and the license plate cameras, license plate readers. The thing about an immigration raid is that when the ICE agents go into a workplace, or as we are expecting to see schools, hospitals, and churches, they actually have no idea. They cannot distinguish between a citizen, a legal immigrant, or an undocumented immigrant. Because as it turns out, none of us really carry anything more than our driver's licenses, which are insufficient evidence of our immigration status. So what happens, and what immigrant rights communities have been saying, organizations have been saying, is that there will be mass arrests of people who get caught up in that dragnet that ICE is now expanding across the country. When I was a student, for the longest time, I didn't have any evidence of my legality. If I had been caught, pulled over, interrogated, I would have to prove a negative, that I was not an illegal or undocumented immigrant. What's different this time is that apart from what the Trump administration is planning to do with their mass deportations and so on, is that they have a tech arsenal that could help power their immigration crackdown. And part of that tech arsenal are the license plate readers. I have brought with me 2 articles. I've made copies of it. I actually hope that you read it. I'll hand it out. It talks about license plate readers, and it talks about some of the people and individuals and organizations behind the violation of our privacy rights. People like Peter Thiel, who helped fund and Flock Safety, and who helped found Palantir, which is another organization that does that. So let me end by asking this question. You all took an oath at the beginning of this meeting to defend the Constitution of the United States. As an immigrant, I have constitutional rights that are likely to be violated by the use of Flock Safety's data and the use of license plate readers to track immigrants all across this country. So I ask you, how will you protect and defend the rights of immigrants like me? How will you stop the violation of my constitutional rights that these license plate readers are complicit in? And I'll hand these out.
Okay. Hi, Dave Cottrell, 1610 Bowfield. A few different items. What are basically regarding Headley, I'll probably be in the minority, but I'm kind of in favor of the 5.4 mil. Some other friends are in favor of 4.2 mil. I sat next to Evelyn Elster at the first Headley meeting. Did not appreciate Deputy Chief Police Chief David Stillman intimidating and threatening Evelyn with expulsion. She's not saying that word every few minutes or at all, as he said when he threatened her. You will not get a Headley override, nor without her questions about financing being addressed. I asked Evelyn to apply for the former mayor's Headley group. Evelyn goes through the expenses really thoroughly. I agree that we need to have a better salary for the Ferndale police so we can get a better quality of police. I'd like them to have better interviewing skills. I've talked to the police chief about this, or through a letter, which he kind of brushed off. Changing people with the correct crime or no crime and not lying to cooperative witnesses or citizens. I'm not cooperative with the police anymore. Screw you. Many police do not like working all the festival overtime. They'd rather work their shift and go home to their family. We get the people who are willing right now to work what we pay them. Okay. Since Evelyn's not here, I'm going to read what she would have sent. It's like I'm always encouraging people to, just maybe have their message into the Ferndale Forum, come here, or speak to council so the messages get louder, not just within a small group. So I'm reading what Evelyn posted this evening. I won't be saying what I won't be saying at call to audience at council tonight because there's no point, and I don't have the skill set to make them think it is their ideas I'm proposing. Headley override and spending on 1/27/2025. We have a recent fleet policy which replaces city vehicles every 5 years. Our tax dollars are paying close to as much as to lease them as we would if we purchased those vehicles, but at the end of those 5 years, we'll have absolutely nothing to show for it. All while, a large percentage of residents can't even afford to put a muffler on their cars. Some drunk runs into one light pole, so now we have to replace them all. Your CIP, wish list process, and PBB budget is a joke. Food transmitters fail, so we have to drop $3.2 million to replace every 10-year-old water meter in the city, which was only half of their expected life. Okay, you drop well over your budget, $20 million on the dot monolith money pit, which may never produce anything but a deficit every year. That same dot monolith we do not have the opportunity to vote on. I question the requirements for any other future parking structure which has the same sort of skin. This looks appear to me like the same requirements, that we don't make any profit on the dot, and I don't think we're going to make any profit in the 180 Vester parking lot. And so we'll probably end up finding, oh, sorry, finances won't make it out, but we have the 141 apartments here. So I've hit the length, and she has a few more things, but thank you.
Hello, Mayor and also City Council members. My name is Christopher Hall. I live on 1845 Symes Street. I am possibly the appointee for the Parks and Rec Commission Board. I just want to be very lighthearted. So my dog is in the top 15 for America's Best Pet. He is representing the state of Michigan. I'm very excited about that. He's beaten out so far over 40 dogs. So I just want to come up and say that and just let everyone know about it. So just keeping it light.
Also, Mr. Hall, I believe you are on the Parks and Rec Board. It's not, you were appointed, I believe, the last council meeting.
Oh,
So
cool.
you're in.
All right, sweet. All right, thanks.
All right.
Congratulations.
Still open for call to audience if anyone wants to speak on anything on or off the agenda. With that being said, I'm closing call to audience at 7:25. And I will move to the consent agenda. 7A, approval of the January 13th, 2025 and January 21st, 2025 meeting minutes. 7B, approval of the annual preventative maintenance and inspection at the Hilton Road Pump Station by Kennedy Industries for up to $6,000 with the expense charged to the Water and Sewer Fund. Contractual maintenance. 592-000-818.000 and approve Director of Public Works to sign contract documents. 7C, approval to backfill one DPW labor position. 7D, approval of the interlocal agreement between the City of Ferndale and Oakland County to implement MIDC Standard 7. 7, wait a minute, got confused, okay. E, approval of deficit elimination plan resolution for the auto parking fund. 7F, approval of the listed and appointments and reappointments to the city boards and commissions. 7G, approval of bills and payrolls as submitted by the finance director and subject to review by the council finance committee. We'll make a motion to receive the consent agenda.
Make a motion to receive the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Hilly,
Yes.
Mikulski,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Polika,
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes. Now we are moving on to the regular agenda. One item tonight, item 8A, consideration of the approval of the ballot language and resolution for renewal of the voter authorized operating millage. Durham City Manager will be presenting.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just give me 1 second here. All right, so I've prepared a brief presentation based on the conversation that was had last Tuesday night. So some of this stuff is probably going to look quite familiar, but there's some additional information as well. So just a quick timeline. Since the November election, we've held 2 actual town hall sessions, November and December. Last Tuesday, we held a special council session, and then tonight, hopefully, the decision will be made on the ballot language and the proposal to move forward. Just a reminder, our deadline for a May election is 4 p.m. on February 11th. So after last Tuesday night, we're focused now on 3 options. The first one is to restore the voter authorized additional operating millage at the current level. And as a side note, due to timing, we are likely only going to be able to levy the new millage on tax day 2026. So we wouldn't be able to do it this year. It'll be next year just because of the timing of the election, getting the state form, the L4029 in, which is what authorizes our tax levy annually. So all of the figures have been updated a little bit, mostly the same as they were, but just to reflect anticipated changes in property values and other rollbacks by 2026. So the first one, this is to restore the voter authorized additional operating millage at the current level. As we've been talking about, this would be about a 4.2 mil levy. This will you know, if this is what we go forward with all three of these proposals, there will be a rollback at the end of this year. So we'll have to take that into account as well, and we have in most of these models. So for this one, in 2026, we would have a total of 15.1043 mils estimated. This would actually be a decrease because of rollbacks of about 0.5 mils over this last tax year. Again, we would need to immediately find about $137,000 in expenditure cuts this year, and this is going to be true with all three due to levying the tax, the new millage in 2026 and not this year. And by fiscal year 27, we'd be looking at about $321,000. By 2033, the deficits would be at a point that would, without structural changes, we would deplete the fund balance by 2033. So the second option we've been looking at now is to add half a mil on the currently rolled back 4.2 mils, so a total of 4.7 mils. We anticipate if this is rolled back, it would be about 4.61 in tax year 2026, which would be the first year of levy. A total of 15.59 mils. It would be levied in 2026. This includes the charter operating millage, which would work out to about an increase of 0.3 mils over this last tax year, 2024. We would see significant deficit spending in about fiscal year 2029, and we would be looking at depleting fund balance by 2034 without structural cuts to address those deficits. Now, to restore to the voter authorized operating millage at the 2015 level, this one would be the 5.4452. This would roll back to approximately 5.445. This would set the operating millage for tax year 2026 at an estimated 16.6425 mils. Again, first year, 137,000 in expenditure cuts we need to be looking at, and then we would need to identify other efficiencies to address projected deficits beginning in 2031. This one, the biggest issue will be coming up towards the end. The expiration will start being in about the same kind of spot we're in now, where moving forward we'll be needing to either renew or find different cuts to make. So those are the three options based on council feedback last Tuesday. A quick summary, and I had this as our summary at the end of the last meeting as well. Basically, the biggest thing is the first two, the 4.2 and the 4.7 mils, both act as a very short-term Band-Aid. We would not be able to make any kind of real building capital improvement needs. The 5.4452 definitely provides more runway and would give us the opportunity to fund some of our building capital needs, though not fully funded, and we'd be looking at fiscal issues towards the end of the renewal. I was asked to kind of do a little bit of a dive into what the impact would be on the overall taxing for a property. So I estimated summer tax bills for homes with a taxable value of $135,000. As I said last Tuesday, that works out to about the 90th percentile of properties in the city. And then the average is about $78,000, so I ran those as well. So these numbers here not only include the city operating, city millage, it also includes sanitation, it includes all of the school millages that are not included the operating because that's not paid for by homesteaded properties. So this does not include those 18 mills. So a non-principal residential exemption home would actually be more than this by about 18 mills. But, so I ran the numbers with a 4.2 mil override, a 4.7 override, and the 5.4452. The difference on a home with 135,000 is a total of about $170 between all of the, all of the taxes that are collected in the summer. This includes also county and drain taxes. For a home with a taxable value of $78,000, the difference works out to just about $100 a year on the summer taxes. Total general fund revenue that's generated from this millage, at the low end of the 4.2, this is $4 million of the budget. This is what we've been talking about for approximately a year now, is that $4 million that we would need to find in the budget if we don't do an override. The 4.7 mils should generate an estimated $4.5 million in that first year, and then the five and change mils would be at 5.2 million in the first year. So with that, we have prepared a resolution that was in the packet that would authorize the ballot language. Currently, the ballot language is left blank. It is for the council to decide what millage rate they would like to pursue, as well as any expiration timeframe. But that is the presentation I've got for you tonight, and I'm happy to kind of thumb around in it for you if you like as you debate. But with that.
Can you go back to the previous screen so that we can have that up again?
Absolutely.
That one.
Yep, so this one's the more general summary as far as the impact of the city.
Okay. All right. It is opened up to council. I know that we've all had some sort of conversation with community members over the past week, so I'm opening it up to council for discussion.
Through the chair, did you want to offer anybody from the audience first? Do you want to specifically talk about this? I mean, I don't know if people knew that they could have talked about it during call to audience.
Well, I did say anything on or off the agenda.
Okay.
Through the chair, I do have a question. So, James, I have the old presentation from the last council meeting on my laptop, and I'm just going to verify that I have the right one. When I look at the table that was presented to us previously, at 4.7 mils, renewal plus half mil, immediate cuts needed, it says no cuts required immediately, first deficits in fiscal year 2029. When I look at this one, it says 137,000. Which one is it?
Well, so this is one of the adjustments that's been made because of the now known fact that we won't be able to levy the 4.7 in 2025. We'll have to.
Okay.
So essentially,
So basically, we have to make $137,000 worth of immediate cuts this year. No matter what we do.
over this last year's budget. Yep.
Okay, great.
In the 26 budget that we're preparing now.
Yes, absolutely. That's what we're kind of targeting right now.
Is that it?
I'm sure I've got more. but-
Okay. All right.
So I guess I'll start through the chair then. So I spent the weekend talking to many different residents, some friends, some neighbors, some business owners, just kind of getting a feel for where everyone is at. And, I personally, I like the 5.4. I think it puts us in a much better position and able to fund some of our building capital. But upon talking to people, there was people, going all different directions, I think. But I could get the 4.2 to agree on 4.7. And, a lot of discussions about what success looks like for us and, just getting this across the finish line. And there's just so much uncertainty with a lot of people and fear of what the future is going to look like and a lot of unknowns. And I think for me, I am leaning towards the 4.7. because I just think that's a reasonable compromise for us. And, you know, personally, in my household, I've had to assess my situation and my finances and make some sacrifices, like not seeing my partner for this month. I've been flying back and forth, you know, to take care of my mother-in-law. And, you know, just I think the city we're gonna have to make some sacrifices as well, you know, and find some common ground to get this across the finish line. So that's where I'm at with that.
Okay, I'll go next. I know you all have seen that I put out that informal poll originally that had all the different options. I put out a secondary informal social poll with 3 choices, so 3 choices that we're facing tonight. The results were interesting, and on one forum, the no override actually won out by 47%. The second option was the 5.4 mils. On another forum, the 5.4 mils was the top option at 46%, and the no's were the secondary option at 33%. And I spent the weekend, as well as part of last week, mulling it over, thinking about what does that mean for us? Because operationally, 5.4 mils makes sense, right? I think we can all agree 5.4 is going to do us better as an entity and a service provider. But the reality of just somebody who's going to vote no or vote for a 4.2 is probably not going to vote for a 5.4. But a 5.4 person is likely to vote for a 4.7 or a 4.2. And I wonder if a 4.7 would be just a better option. I've thought it since we first came through with these solutions. It gives us enough of a runway, in my opinion. Obviously, we have to make $137,000 worth of cuts, no matter what option we pick tonight. But with the first significant deficits beginning in 2029, that gives us time to be smart about it and strategic about it and thoughtful and do it in a way that doesn't cut services. I don't think anybody wants to see services go downhill. And that's another thing that I've heard from people. They don't want to see this impact their services, and that's why they have leaned towards what they've leaned towards. That's why I'm leaning towards what I'm leaning towards. Otherwise, in a perfect world, those folks who, wanted a 4.2, I feel like we could satisfy them and capture the folks that were voting for a 4.7 and a 5.4. That's the biggest lump sum that we could get. But at 4.2, I just don't know that we're not going to have to make service cuts that will impact our residents.
So, I think 4.2 is a non-starter for me. It sets us up for, we won't be in a good place almost immediately. It's just, especially with the delay in timing and the fact that none of these millages, we're not going to ever levy the mill that's being authorized. That's the other thing we have to remember is we're going to pick a number and we're never actually going to get to levy that number because a rollback will happen before we're able to do the first levy. And so, 4.2, I can't get on board with that because it would be even lower when we finally did the tax, when we finally did the levy. 5.4, that's going to be the one that sets us up for the best success. 4.7, my concern with 4.7 is that, again, I'm open, I'm flexible, so I'm willing to compromise, I'm open to go for something like 4.7. But I think if we do, we have to be really clear with folks that we're gonna do this, but right now, James's model is showing us that we start to run into a problem in fiscal 29. Well, we're about to enter fiscal 26. That's not a lot of years. We're not getting 10 years out of this millage. Like, it's not going to happen. And what's going to happen then is we will start cutting services. Because one thing I won't get on board with council is, if I'm here, is deficit spending. We're not using the fund balance for operating costs. Because when you do that, that's your first red flag that you're in financial distress. That's when the state takes notice. That's when your creditors start to downgrade your credit because they know you're spending your reserves for your ongoing recurring costs. And that means that you're in a death spiral. So, you know, so long as I'm on the council, I will never agree to a budget that uses fund balance to maintain operating services, which means that by fiscal 29, we are cutting major services. That will happen. We will begin to cut real services unless we go back to the voters much earlier than we expect. And the hope is maybe, hey, maybe by then things have changed. Maybe the globe isn't on fire. Seems unlikely, but who knows? And so I just think, you know, we can go with this if it's something that we think is, you know, the best path to success. But I think we just have to be really transparent with residents that doing this may feel like relief in the short term, but we will have a major problem in far less than 10 years. And, you know, that's the reality, is we will likely have to come back and have a discussion and likely have to take something to the voters sooner than the term of the millage. Because if we're running out by fiscal 29, you know, that's too many years to try to bridge the gap. I mean, we're bankrupt before the end of the millage term. Like, that's it. We're in receivership because we can't do the core services even. That's the problem. So, but the reality is, and again, I'm not pushing back on 4.7 either, for the reason that 5.45 doesn't buy us that. I mean, it gets us a couple more years, and it gives us a little more breathing room, but the problem is still the same problem. And the other reality is something that, you know, Councilmember Kelly was talking about, is cost inflation is not going to get better. Even since our special session, the federal administration has done some pretty chaotic things that have really upset the global markets. I don't see that costs are going to go down. And so even if we were to go to 54452, I don't think it would actually buy us as much as we even hope. Because I don't think 4.7 is, I don't think any of these millages, to be honest with you. I mean, hell, if we did a whole override back to 20 and we got approval for that, that's not going to last as long as we would have even hoped for that, because I think things are going to get so expensive and uncertain. And so, you know, all that being said, if it's more palatable to the voters, I'm fine with 4.7. I'll get on board with 4.7, as long as we continue to be very clear to voters, to residents, that we're going to be back a lot sooner than you think to have this conversation all over again. You know, that for better or worse. But we'd be back, you know, maybe even just 1 year later for a 5.4. You know, it's not like we're not going to have to go back early and have this conversation. So, sorry, that was very downbeat. Sorry for the pessimism in that, but I just think that's the reality.
Through the chair. So I, too, talked to friends and received a number of emails from folks over the weekend. Most of the people that I interact with, because I've been on council now for 12 years, they're very like-minded people. None of us want to pay more in taxes, obviously. But at the same time, they know the importance of investing in city services. And someone that I talked to shared with me something interesting that I mean, from a council person, I've looked at it, but I've never looked at it really as a property owner. But property owners aren't just investors in the city. You're not just investing in your property. You're investing in the city. Your employees, you know, your employers of the city staff. The taxes you pay go to salaries. Over 70% of the general fund, this fund pays the employees, and over 80% of those are police, fire, and DPW, the essential services. Your taxes are paying those salaries, those employees. People, are talking about tightening their belts. Our employees are tightening their belts too at home. They have children that they're supporting. They're putting food on the table, clothes on their back. They deserve a living wage just as you do. And so, the people that I've been talking to are like, yeah, if I have to pay $10 more a month, to guarantee that I'm going to have, good services, services that I've had, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to give a little bit of something up to pay for good services. In my mind, the only option is the 5.445. And that's what most of the people that I talk to supported. They don't want to have to pay more, but again, they understand the value of investing in our city. I don't think I can support anything under 5.445 unless it was a 5-year and not a 10-year, because in 5 years, we're going to be coming back to the table on a 4.7. It makes no sense to go for a 10-year knowing that in 5 years, you're going to be depleted. And I honestly think that a 5-year is a waste of time and energy. So I will be supporting the 5.445.
Through the chair, I would like to clarify that, I think many folks have the understanding that they're investing in their city and they care about their city as well. And it looks different for them. And it's not wrong or right. It's, we represent a wide range of folks here in the city and many different voices. And our job is to find consensus and find something that's going to get across the finish line and get a yes vote in the end, so we can continue to employ these folks. Or if it doesn't pass, then what happens, right? So it's about more than just our like-minded friends.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that. But no, I mean, the people that reached out to me via email, there were a few people that were very against the 5.45. But the people that I interact with, those are the people that are supporting this, because I'm not on social media in those groups. So I know that there are people out there that are very anti-everything. They're, cave people, citizens against virtually everything. I don't interact with those individuals. If they want to reach out to me, I'm willing to interact with them.
I'm open to talk to many different folks, so I have spoke to them, and along with many different people, not just my friends. And that's what I'm looking for, is what the consensus is to get it across the finish line so we can effectively run our city and keep our employees employed.
Through the chair. On a personal note, I just survived a round of layoffs today, and feeling the bite of potentially losing my job on the backs of GM folks losing their jobs on Friday as well as today, and potentially more coming, I am hesitant, because as much as I agree with what you're saying, Greg, I do believe our employees deserve cost of living increases. I do believe that, we want to make sure that we are providing for them. We are an employer, and they are providing us services, and I think everybody in this town knows and feels that same way. But we lost the last election, and I don't want to lose this one, because if I lose this one and I have to cut 34 jobs, it's not going to be great, and it's going to impact our services, and it's going to impact those people in a far more real way. So I'm very hesitant to go high, despite knowing that that would be very comfortable for us. Well, very comfortable is a stretch. It would be more comfortable for us. But I'm looking at that 4.7 saying, look, can I bridge the gap? Can I bridge the gap between the people that are saying, just do a flat increase if you're doing an increase at all, versus the people that are supporting the 5.4. At least with the 4.7, with a $500,000 increase, we can fund some of the capital improvements, which I think we need to go through with a fine-tooth comb as is, while still potentially satisfying the people who just want to keep things flat and keep it as is and have us look for cuts proactively.
Through the chair, to something that just sort of occurs to me as well is, one thing I think we're going to have to also be realistic about in all of this is, regardless of which millage rate we have, one of the things we're going to really have trouble with is our grant funding. So we're going to have a real reduction in federal funding for a lot of the programs that we've taken for granted for a while. And, those are going to be the kinds of things that like the general fund just can't pick up. And then there's going to be things like the lead line replacement. I'm pretty certain that the EPA rule is going to get repealed within the next month or so, but the state rule still exists and it still has this mandate that we, replace our lead lines. We're really not going to be any place to do that without a massive increase to the water rate, which is, also going to get us the same kind of, frankly, heat that we're going to have over this millage. So, the other reality is whatever millage rate we choose, there's still going to be things we're probably going to have to downsize by virtue of the fact that our funding was really a match to some other type of funding, right? And it's going to, if that's not there, then we're not spending the money on that. And then maybe that's a consideration as well.
True, but almost all of that funding was project-specific. It was purchasing an item or creating something for a one-time investment where we got a match. It wasn't necessarily, hiring 3 police officers for 2 years on a grant, and then we would have to pick it up.
Well, we do have that. So we have the mental health co-response, which is partially grant funded. And then we, yes, you're right. No, you're not. Yes, you're right. We do have some like CDBG. That's what's doing our, the amazing program that, CED, worked out. But, those are very small in the scheme of our things. Yes, you're right. These are big ticket things, but that was sort of how we were able to cover some of the bigger ticket capital needs. We got a grant that helped us purchase a new fire engine, like all these other things. If those grants don't exist, we're not in a position to buy a whole fire engine on our own, not in any of these scenarios. You know what I mean? And so, there are considerations outside of just the millage rate that I think we also have to grapple with.
Well, and there's, you're looking at non-employee costs that come out of the general fund. Everybody thinks that, that 30% difference, I shouldn't say everyone. There are some people that think that that 30% difference is just fluff. We have a $500,000 electric bill that we pay every year for street lighting, parking lots, buildings, facilities, parks. Everything that you're not paying on your electricity bill is being covered by the city. We have water bills. We pay a fee to use water for our watering of lawns, our lawns, the downtown flower watering, the splash pad. Those are all coming out of the general fund, all of those services, telephone, internet.
Yeah, your non-discretionaries.
Yeah, and so a lot of those things are going to have to be looked at, And do we close down the splash pad because we can't afford to keep it? We can't afford the maintenance, we can't afford the water, so just mothball it until a time when you can afford it. When cracks come up on the skate park, just put caution tape around it and we'll go on from there. Because the last thing I want to do is lay off fire, police, or DPW, which again make up 80% of the staff in the general fund. Thank you.
And you sort of are helping reinforce one of my earlier points, Greg, which is that, a lot of our non-discretionary costs are experiencing inflation. DTE just got authorization for their rate case. So they didn't get their full rate case, but they did get half of it, so tariffs are gonna go up. Well, guess what? Ferndale, like you just said, has electric bills. Not only the kind that are these lights, but the street lights, which are a separate tariff. This is one type of tariff, that's a different type of tariff. And the street lighting tariff also went up. So municipalities are gonna pay a lot more to keep the street lights on every year. So, these are the realities. I think, frankly, any of these things are a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. And they're gonna stanch the bleeding for a little bit, but they're not going to treat the underlying problem. And a lot of the underlying problem is not ours. One, it's circumstances out of our control. I can't control what the President of the United States does with trade policy. I can't even control what the state government does about revenue sharing. And these are all things, it's just death by 1,000 cuts at the local level. And I know that what we're saying here at this table and what residents are probably, frankly, really freaking tired of hearing us talk about is this, but every city in Michigan is now beginning to have these types of council or commission or board settings where they're saying, what the heck are we gonna do? We're all starting to hit this wall where voters are getting tapped out, residents are getting tapped out, and the state's not stepping in to fill the gap. I'd like to hear from the mayor.
All right. So I've heard everything that everyone had to say, and I've heard the conversations. I think that hearing from our police, particularly at one of the recent meetings, about how they are stretched they have already stretched their resources. I'm sure that's the same with fire. I'm sure that's the same with DPW. And what we're saying is that we want them to stretch a little more. Now, I don't know about anyone else here, but I am constantly getting emails regarding services and how DPW has to put people on lists in order to get out to their homes to help with services, projects that we have in the city. I feel like they are stretched already. And to be able to have them stretch even more, I think would have a grave impact on the services that we're accustomed to having. And even still, we're on wait list right now with using what we use right now. 5.4, I think, the way I look at it is giving us the bare minimum to maintain city services. It is up to us how many mills we levy every year. And I was very comforted in the fact that the Finance Committee is coming up with ways, or would like to have ways for more transparency to be able to review the spending in each department, asking each department head to really essentially state what they're spending things on and what can they absolutely do without. I've also witnessed our departments making cuts, making those efforts right now. We just heard from the city clerk, the savings there, and every little bit of savings helps. I had a conversation with our interim city manager over the weekend regarding the mills that we've used up to this point. And I think you said we were at, I don't know if you have it up there, but I'm just going to say, I think you said we were at 15.6952. I think you said that. We also, and I think that was roughly about utilizing, I think you said maybe 16.9 mils. Forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, but I'm trying to just weigh these options. And with the 5.4, we would be at 16.6425. I think that is fairly close to the bare minimum. I was also questioning Councilmember Polika's concerns regarding being able to stretch that to 10 years. And upon our conversation James. I think that we could, with being smart and being fiscally responsible through the course of this time. I also think that doing something in 5 years is, with this uncertainty with what we're dealing with right now with the climate, our political climate right now, I just think that coming back in 5 years to ask residents for another Headley is just, doesn't make any sense to me. 5 years goes pretty quickly, and we don't know where we're going to be at that point. We don't know where we're going to be economically at that point. And I think coming back in 5 years has the potential to definitely fail because it's too soon. So I'm definitely in support of 10, because I think that gives us time to stretch. I think that gives us time for us to utilize our city services, and that gives us time to think about other ways in which to cut costs like we're doing right now. We're thinking about those things right now. Was between the 5.4 and the 4.7. I think that the 5.4 gives us a little more stability and is able to provide the services that we are used to. However, and I also think that when we had the failed millage proposal just a few months ago, the residents spoke and said that this was too much. They were tired of the spending. They didn't want their taxes to go up. And they wanted us, I think the commonality that I heard was come back with something better. And I think this is less, and I think this is better. I think this can still get us the services that we need. And I think this can still help support our police and fire and DPW. When we had the election just recently, we saw that the community supports these types of services. So I don't think that we should cut back on that. I don't think that we should mess with those services, because I can tell you right now, when I talk to other people in other communities, they kind of like the services that we have. And I don't know about you all, but I like the services that we have, even if we have to go on wait lists, even if we have to wait until DPW can get out to us. I mean, they're stretched to where they're at. And I think we like our services that's provided by our police and fire. I'm always hearing how the community values our police and fire. And I think that we'd be sending the wrong message if we say, okay, yes, we value you, but we're going to go with this. You all have your families to take care of like we do too. And I'm not saying this lightly. I'm a resident of this community. I'm a single mom. I've got a child that's about to graduate. I've got a daughter in college. I'm a mother of a child with special needs. So I know about having to stretch. And I know about having to work at the bare minimum. But I also like our services. I like to be able to put my trash out. I like that we can have that picked up and I don't have to carry that somewhere. I like that I can call our police and our fire and they can be here in record time. I like that. I think that we did compromise. The groups that did not want to see a Headley override, we did compromise, and I think we came up with something better. I think we came up with what you asked for. When I've spoken to people, their support has been for the 5.4, saying they can go with that, whether I received it via text, via email, via phone call. And after thinking about it a lot, I just think that 5.4 is the way to go, and maybe it has the potential to fund some building capital. Maybe we won't be able to do that. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to forego that in order to stretch this to the 10 years. I don't know what it looks like. But I know that this gives us some leeway to do that, and it's less of a millage, less of a operating millage that we've asked for in the past. I think it's a good compromise. I thought about it long and hard, and I am in support of, to be clear, I'm in support of the 5.4. I'm in support of it being at 10 years, not 5. I think that's too soon to come back and ask the residents to help with this. And I think that over the course of that time, we will have our police, our fire, and our DPW will continue to find ways to be able to fund certain services, to work out any grants that they receive, and to really start thinking about what we can do to not put so much of a burden on the taxpayers, but still be able to provide them with services that they deserve. That's just where I'm at, and again, I had a lot of time to think about it. Many meetings. So I still open it up to council to, if you have any comments or any questions. Otherwise, we're going to have to decide what kind of ballot language we want to put on the resolution.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I think that it's really important that council have unity on this. And based on the conversations, I know that Mayor Pro Tem Mikulski and Councilwoman Kelly, thank you, mine went blank. I know that they're not as in favor of the 5.45, and I understand that, I appreciate that. I mentioned at the last council meeting that the first time we did this in 2011, the language stated that it would be a 5.45 mil, but that the first year it would be reduced. Would you think it would be favorable if we went for the 5.45, but the first year it be set at 4.7? And then after, council has the ability to increase it to the 5.45. Maybe we don't increase it to the whole 5.45 in 2027. Maybe it only goes up to 5 instead of 4.7. But the first year, it would start at 4.7. And council has the ability to raise it after that to the 5.45.
Would it be an automatic raise to the
No.
5.45?
Council has to approve it.
We have to approve our tax
Every
statement
year,
and
we
the budget.
approve it when we approve the budget.
So through the chair, I've got a couple thoughts on this. 4.7 is great. Clearly, I'm on board with that. And I like the idea of it saying 4.7 on the ballot language. But I think we have an issue of trust. And I think people are going to see, are they going to see a 4.7 and a 5.4 on the ballot language?
Yes, it would read, so I'll read what the 2011 term has. Shall the city of Ferndale, county of Oakland, Michigan, be permitted to increase its authority millage rate in 2011 for a term of 5 years, ending in December 2015, by an additional 5.4552 mils on each dollar of the taxable value of all real estate personal property in the city of Ferndale, which will restore the city to the city the charter authorized millage amount for general purposes, which has been reduced by Section 31 of Article 9 of the State Constitution of 1963, all of which tax revenues would be dispersed to the city of Ferndale, provided that the city shall not be authorized to levy more than, in that case, it was 3 mils in 2011. The charter authorized millage amount has been reduced by required millage rollbacks in recent years to 14.5448. If approved, the initial 3 mils authorized for levy would be raised approximately $1.681,806 in 2011. So it would read something very similar to that.
That feels convoluted.
That's kind of my concern is like, we did something complicated in November and
Well, you did 2 items, and I think that was the complicated. I think people were thinking, well, yeah, I'm going to vote for the police and fire one, but I'm not going to vote for this huge 8 mil.
well, the whole thing was complicated. I've heard from a lot of folks about it, and it's definitely was convoluted, and they didn't like it. So my concern with that is that that would feel convoluted to them, and a confused resident or someone who doesn't fully understand it is more likely to just say, I don't get that, I'm not supporting it, because it's what happened to us in November. Because that is what I would support something like that, My worry is we're in a position now that's very different from then. You know, there's just, the vibes are bad, to use what the kids say. The vibes are bad. I mean, people are not feeling supportive. And my worry about 5-4 is that it's not that it's actually that much more than 4.7. It's not. If you look at this, it's $41 more per year. That's not a lot. I mean, by anyone's metric. That's just over the course of 12 months, that's not a lot.
Well, and that's the 90th percentile. Most people don't have a
Even nearly
taxable
that.
value of $135,000.
And I would like to say through the chair that $121 is a lot through the year to some folks.
Yes.
Well,
To some folks it is. When you are a single mom or whatever your scenario is, that's a lot of money.
Sure,
And it takes cuts.
I understand, Councilmember Kelly, I do understand that. But $10 a month to keep our staff employed for more than 3 years is kind of not a lot to ask. It just isn't. Because we have to do the whole city, remember? Everybody. It's what you keep reiterating. It's for everybody, right?
It is for everyone, yeah.
And so, like, that's our job. So my concern, and I'm not saying that I'm not making a decision right now, because clearly I'm the swing vote on this, right? It's very clear, I'm the swing. So my concern with 5-4 is regardless of it being not very much, because it objectively is not $10 a month, it is that it is just the numbers themselves on the ballot, the way people feel right now. There's an instinctive reaction to say that's just too much. And if that's what happens, we're in the worst scenario. Because if this fails again, we don't get another bite at the apple. That's it. No, we aren't. No, we are not. That's it, because the voters will have made it clear. We are going to let that ride for a while. We're not doing we can't just keep going back every election and asking for something. It's not going to work. Politically, it will not work. And so if this doesn't pass in May, regardless of the result, that's it for a while. There's going to be a cooling off period that we're going to take, and then we will begin making the cuts that need to be made. And then we'll revisit what we need to do. But that's my whole situation. I don't think we'd get another bite at the apple for a while, because I don't think the political will would be there. And so that's my concern is, you all know I'm not necessarily the most gun-shy person. I'm pretty, blunt. But I'm feeling very gun-shy after November. I'm worried about taking the risk of putting us in a position where we don't get anything as opposed to getting something. And I know it's not ideal. I'm fully aware of what the result of what this will be. I can run the numbers too. I look at the millage models in Excel just like anybody else, this council and in the city manager's office. And I know that 4.7, we're going to be in trouble sooner than everyone thinks. We're really going to be making some cuts. We won't touch police, fire, and DPW first, but we will start cutting sooner rather than later. And then what's going to happen is we're going to start getting this inundation of emails of people very angry that we've begun cutting services that they value. The recreation summer camp, these sorts of, because those aren't mission critical, right? Those aren't core services. Police, fire, DPW, those are core services. We have to preserve those to the last. And so we're going to start cutting things that are nice to have, but they're things that, as the mayor indicated, people really like having. The first fall when we don't pick up leaves, and in fact we ticket people for putting their leaves in the street, because we'll put out notices and people won't realize it. And then we ticket them for obstructing the streets. We're going to be inundated with emails. And I'm willing to put that off, right? Okay, we'll wait for 3 years for that to happen. But it will start to happen. We're not going to make it 10 years. And we're not going to make it 10 years at either, realistically, with cost inflation. Because we have to pay those things, water bills, electric bills, those things are going up. So, I'm torn. Personally, I want 5-4. That gives us the breathing room. It lets us do what we need to do, maintain services for even just a little bit longer. But then I'm worried what happens if it fails again.
Well,
then we're in a bad situation.
you say that it gives us breathing room. I really don't. I mean, the 4.7 is going to, once it passes in 26, sorry, if it passes and it gets initiated in 26, we're already going to be starting at even. It just goes down from there. At least with 5.445, you at least have a chance to be able to give our emergency services a decent wage for the next 3 years and protect the important city services, but you're still going to end up having to make cuts.
Through the chair, I just want to say, me personally, I would vote for the 5-4, okay? I think it's great. I think it's what we need to do. I've talked to many friends who would also vote with that. But I've also talked to a lot of other folks, and when I'm leaning on the 4-7, it's not my personal opinion. It's what I think is going to give us success in the long run. So we can do the doom and gloom. It's one way or the other, but we just got to figure out what is the best path forward.
Well, and I understand that. I mean, I know that there's going to be people that will not support any millage. And then you have people that will not support anything over the 4.2. And you have people that will not support anything over the 4.7. It's our responsibility to explain to them why they should support it and what their investment is going to cover. The money that they have to pay, that additional difference of whether it be $60 a year or $100 a year, what is that going to cover? The last election was different because we asked for more than what we needed because we were going to build new facilities, we were going to invest in all these things, there were all of these big grand plans, and that's what people didn't like. But if we can narrow this down to exactly what they're investing in and what they're going to lose if this 5.45 doesn't pass, I think a lot of those people will be on board. They won't like it. Again, nobody likes paying more taxes. No one likes to get that bill and see, oh, my tax bill just went up. But again, I think as a unified council, it's our responsibility to explain to the residents and the voters and the property investors why this millage is necessary and why 4.7 won't cut it.
So through the chair, I'm going to do some final thoughts here. I think we all, as a council body, know that I'm the most tied into the no votes, right? Like, we can all agree on that. I will say the vast majority of the people that I talked to were no votes in the past election. And so clearly I am biased one way that is different than the bias of your friends that are biased the other way. And I have heard repeatedly since we started this discussion, they are fine with a 4.2. They could maybe get on board with a 4.7. They draw the line at a 5.4 because of economic uncertainty, potential job losses, feelings of distrust, and feeling that we're not going to really start making cuts, which they'd said that they wanted to see, if we go with a 5.4. And I keep coming back to, what's my path of least resistance? Where do I succeed? And I keep seeing the 4.7 as that option. It sucks for us. We can all agree with that. It sucks for us. And you can sit there and talk about, like, we're not going to have wage increases for our staff. But the reality is, it's wage increases or it's layoffs. We've got two options. And I don't want layoffs. Having that little bite today and feeling the taste of it, and I've gone through downturns before, and I've gone through downsizing before, it's coming for a lot of people. We all know it. We can all sense the shift in the air. The vibes are bad. And with the vibes being bad, I am trying my darndest, I'm trying not to swear tonight too, trying my darndest to find the path forward where we can protect our services. And I know, again, at 4.7, we got to do some cuts. But can we survive with our core services for a time period, maybe until 2029? If we can, that gives us some breathing room to write what I don't want to say is the wrong, because it's not a wrong, but write the feelings and the perceptions of our residents that things are not right for them. And if we have that time period and we can talk to people and we can get them on board with this, I feel like the next time that we come back with transparency, with accountability, with a list of cuts that we've made, we're gonna be in a better spot. So those are my final thoughts. I'm still really leaning into that 4.7, and I haven't heard anything that's really making me lean elsewhere tonight.
So, I guess the question that I have, for you, Mayor Pro Tem, is, if we survive through 29, for example, and then we begin to hit our first significant deficits, meaning essentially we're starting to draw into the reserve to keep things afloat, and we have to go back and have a conversation with residents, what does that look like to you? Does that mean we have to go back and say, we need to talk about an earlier renewal of the millage? I mean, I worry then that we also have a problem with saying that this was going to be for 10 years and then we go back early.
Yeah.
That's kind of couldn't that possibly bite us too?
That could, yeah.
I did have some conversations regarding that, if we put a 10-year and we had to revisit it in 4 or 5. And I just got a lot of consensus that would be the way to go, and to clearly state that. I mean, just based on how folks are feeling.
Yes, and I have one more question, just to probe Mayor Pro Tem's mind and Councilmember Kelly. From a practical standpoint, I think one of the realities of this vote is that there were a lot of people who voted no who were fairly on the fence. I think the majority of the no votes were not necessarily the hardcore no's. I think a lot of them were I'm not 100% clear what this is, or this feels like just a little too much. And I'm wondering, with 5.4, are there enough residents who maybe were no last time, who they're really not interested in seeing the city have this huge cut that would happen, the $4 million cut? Are there enough do we think there are enough votes, people who would say that's more reasonable, and it's straightforward because there's not a bunch of stuff in here, it's just one straightforward question, who would become yes votes? Yes, there are still going to be people who are no votes, for sure, that's true. But I think there's a possibility that there are also enough residents who don't want the alternative. They don't want that super negative outcome, and they would see this as, fine, it's reasonable, I'll go with this even if I don't love it. The sort of, I'll hold my nose and go for this kind of thing. That to me doesn't seem like a completely far-fetched scenario where this would still be seen by a lot of folks who were right there in the middle. They voted no for sort of, any number of reasons, but they're not super dyed-in-the-wool, anti-anything people.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to state that there were quite a few residents that absolutely did not understand the ballot language last time. And when in doubt, you vote no. I mean, we all know that when in doubt, vote no. So I wonder, with clear-cut language and the steps that I see departments taking, and with, again, the transparency of the finance department, I think that we're moving in the right direction. We're already making cuts right now that weren't even factored in yet. So I just wonder if this, I think that this is more palatable than what we've had before. I think the language has to be very clear. So just to know what that looks like is going to be the interesting thing. Language has to be very clear, but I've not seen heard anything that makes me move away from caring about the 5.4. I think it's less. I think that it will maintain services that we're used to. I think that even though I've heard things about the trust, I think that the fact that we're coming up with suggestions and trying to make moves right now should bear some weight regarding what we're trying to do. I don't know. I haven't heard anything that sways me from the 5.4, 10 years.
Through the chair, we have a budget that will be approved at the end of April. We'll be doing reviews in March, so that will give residents a clear sign as to what we're really doing. So before they even vote, they'll know whether or not we've done our due diligence. I don't think that it would matter if it's a 4.7 or a 5.45 at that point. I think if people think that we're not doing what we said we were going to do, they're just not going to vote to support it.
Budget would be before the vote on the millage.
Ish.
We start reviewing it in March. Council starts reviewing it in March, and then we vote for it usually the first meeting. Well, we have a review at the first meeting in April, and then we vote on it in the second meeting in April.
Yeah, that sounds about accurate. I think we have to have it voted on by the first meeting in May.
Yeah, so we always make sure that we do it before May.
And we will have had our finance committee processes that are new, where we're, doing what we're going to be doing, me and you and Phil and James, and then the department directors. And so we would have something to publicly report on that. Probably some of our meetings, we've talked about them being public, and having people be able to observe them and comment. I don't know.
We need to come up with a decision, and we need to make a motion as to where we're going
No one
here.
said this job was easy. Can you flip to the next slide? Because I think that has the financial numbers in it that would need to be implemented in the.
That one?
I think so.
This is the tax bills.
No, but it's the total, because according to this, we have to say in the reading of it, may increase by X, and then in parentheses, it's X per 1,000. But then at the bottom, it says it is estimated that blank mills would raise approximately X amount of dollars in 2026. And I don't have those numbers to make, for any of these options, I don't have those numbers to make those.
Well, I think those are that number.
Well, that is, but
That's the estimate. That's
don't-
the approximate estimate of the first levy.
But
the
that's
revenue.
not the, through the chair, that's not the increase, right? Like, the increase would be whatever the dollar amount is at the 4.2 line plus whatever the mills are above that. So like, if, no?
No, you give the estimate of the dollars for the thing that they're voting on, the specific amount that they're
So the full taxable value, like,
it's
value of it?
the full value of it, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be, so, for example, it would be increased by 4.2 mils. I'm saying that because that's not an option. Be increased by 4.2 mils, but then there's in parentheses, X number per 1,000. I don't know what that number is.
Well, a mill is the 1 mill.
Right, yeah, it'll be whichever millage you go with. So if it is the 4.2, it would be $4.20
Yeah, I'm just not going to
per.
read that number then.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it says, it is estimated that 4.2 mils would raise approximately that number
Yes,
in 2026.
yes.
Okay.
where are we going? Probably first need,
Well, someone needs to make a motion.
right.
We want to start low and see if we have consensus there and then go up, or do you want to go in the reverse?
Well, if I start, you know which way I'm
I
going to
know
go. If
exactly
you
which
start,
way
I
you're
know which way you're going to go.
Poor someone.
Yeah, let me scroll backwards. Oh, so the current ballot language, this is another thing to point out. The current ballot language is already written for 5.4. And I didn't realize that. So if you go into the section about whereas,
Oh,
the,
but
the
that's,
fourth,
That was the 2015 mill.
that's the 2015? Are you,
Yeah, 4552. Yeah,
no, that's, oh, yeah,
Oh,
that
it
was.
says 2025 up at
In
the top.
2015.
stating when the last millage, the last.
The 5.4552.
Fourth line. Fourth, whereas the city council has determined that it is necessary for the health, safety, and welfare of the city to restore the voter authorized
Oh.
separate operating millage in its 5.4452 mills in order to provide necessary funds for general operating purposes.
Yeah, that was for 2015.
No, the fourth
And then
whereas.
it says, whereas the city has determined that the millage restoration shall submit qualified,
That's not the way it reads.
That should have
you're
been, that should
right.
have been blank.
you're right. But that wasn't what I was going to read. I was going to read the ballot language, which is on the last page, Exhibit A, which,
That's not the motion. The motion is to accept the whole thing, right?
Yeah, that was intended to be blank. That was just a typo, the 5.4. When we were originally doing this, we had put together 3 different resolutions. However, legal counsel told us we only needed to have 1, so that was just a
Okay.
missed edit.
All right, well, then I make a motion to consider the approval of ballot language at a 4.7 mil rate and resolution for a renewal of the voter authorized operating millage.
At 10 years, 4.7 years.
At 10 years.
Support.
Mikulski,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Johnson,
they come back to me.
I know, come back to me.
Polika,
No,
Leaks May,
No,
Johnson,
This is like ordering dinner at a restaurant. No.
so we need to change the number and go through it again.
I'm looking for where you said that language was.
It's
read.
the fourth whereas in the,
Under the resolution submitting millage restoration proposal.
Where it says, as determined that it's necessary for the health and safety. I'm not used to reading it like this. This is weird.
Just make the motion however you want, as long as you state the number of mills.
I move to approve the ballot language and resolution for renewal of the voter authorized operating millage. That city council has deemed necessary for the health, safety, and welfare of the city to restore the voter authorized separate operating millage in its original 5.4452 mills in order to provide necessary funds for general operating purposes.
Oh, I guess I have to support that. Support.
through the chair, you want to include the number of years as well?
To be levied through 2016, I'm sorry, to be levied through 2026 through 2035.
Support.
Polika,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes, with explanation.
Mikulski,
Yes, with explanation.
Leaks May.
Yes.
So through the chair, I just want to say I hope this does go through. I know it's the best option. My points up here were to build consensus and get it across the finish line. So, you know, I hope it goes through.
And I was about to vote no. I understand that you want consensus. If I was doing this in a vacuum, could I do 5.4 easily? Sure. I am very worried, and we'll see where this goes.
I think that, if I may, Madam Mayor, I think that at the end of the day, it's my responsibility and our collective responsibility to now do our level best to explain to the residents what this is and what it's for. And I hope that we will, all 5 of us, put energy into explaining what this is, how it will work, the impact on voters, and why we think this is the path forward, even if we all weren't in consensus on it. There are going to be people who are going to be unhappy, and maybe I'm the council member that doomed our next effort at the millage, but if I'm going to go for it, I'd rather go for something that means we don't have to come back with our hat in our hand in 3 to 4 years, because I think that's just going to be as bad as this. I mean, they're going to say, well, you didn't make it. So I just don't think we can make the kind of cuts we need to make to keep it going. I think at that point, we really are doing worst-case scenario cuts very early, especially if costs keep increasing. Really, neither scenario is ideal. But this at least gives us a fighting chance to make it as far into a 10-year period as we can get.
And Councilmember Johnson, you kind of stated what I was thinking, that although we've had lots of conversations and everyone was in kind of different directions, the fact that we've come to a consensus now with explanations or not, I think it's really important for us to be clear to the residents that we will support this even when we're out there on our own time talking with residents, educating them. None of us can waver from it because we know what's at stake. We need to come together and we need to get that message out to everyone with no doubt. So I'm just putting that out there. I think that's going to be quite helpful if we're all on board with it. And the vote says that we are. So now we just have to put it to action.
Through the chair, if I may make one more comment.
Yes.
I hope that instead of me talking to the no voters, that it's all of us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Don't call them cave people, Greg.
Pardon?
Don't call them cave people. I don't know what you said earlier.
It's insulting.
Right. Okay. So with that being said, we have our vote. Moving on to call to council, where I defer to the interim city manager to provide department head updates.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We're going to start in the Finance Department tonight for an update on some water billing issues and the budget process.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am happy to report that we have adjusted all of the bills that went out a couple of weeks ago. And on top of that, every resident in Section 1 and Section 4 received either an email confirmation that their bill had been adjusted or a phone call from one of my staff telling them that their bill has been adjusted. So going forward, we definitely will be making sure that when we get these corrupt downloads from Neptune, that they're vetted before they actually go up to the printer, because that's kind of, in a small nutshell, kind of what happened this time around. Also, We are closing the budget preparation process for the directors this Friday. From that, I will be putting together a budget template that I'll be looking at to analyze as we get ready for the February budget hearings. As some of you have already mentioned, we will actually add an additional layer this year to kind of increase the transparency of our overall budget process by re-implementing the Finance Committee and their involvement in our budget process. I've already told the directors and put them on notice that we definitely have to tighten our belts. And the thing that I think not only the public but the council as well will notice when we go through that process is that we're already running kind of lean. And so we've, anticipating this a couple of years ago, actually under Joe, I started looking at these things. And so we've already started to try to identify efficiencies. And so I told the directors that we need to cut a little more. And so that's what you'll be seeing when we start presenting in March for the budget workshop and then for the subsequent Finance Committee review as well. So everybody is on board as far as what we have to do. So like you guys said, we just have to do it now. Are there any questions?
No. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you for your time.
All right, and next up, our new father back there, Emmanuel Johnson, to come give some updates on Parks and Rec programming.
What is sleep? Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a few updates from Parks and Recreation. So this Saturday, we have our Little Princess Dance that is upcoming at Ferndale High School. It'll take place on Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. Our special guest this time around will be Moana. She'll be coming to visit with the kids and interact and play and everything. And we'll have food, DJs, photos, carnations available, and some goodie bags for the kids to take home as well. There are tickets still available for them. They are $15 if you $15 per person if you purchase them by the end of the day tomorrow. After which they will become $20 per person. And we are also still seeking volunteers for the dance as well to help pass out food, to help oversee some things. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to our department. We also have the Mackinac Grand Experience trip that's coming up. We still have 10 spots available for that. That is a senior-driven trip that takes them up to Mackinac Island to stay at the Grand Hotel, to take part in a variety of different games and activities and experiences over the course of a 3-day trip. This year's trip is scheduled for May 13th to May 16th. And anyone interested in that can check our website for more information to register, or they can contact our senior coordinator, Alicia Pardo, in our Parks and Rec department. We have youth soccer registration that is going to be opening up on February 12th. We've had a lot of calls from residents that have been trying to figure out when that is actually going to open up. We had a little bit of a delayed start this time around, but February 12th is the date that we're targeting to open the registration. The leagues for that program are available for ages 3 to 14, and the games are played on Saturdays and are slated to begin in April. More information of that is available on our website as well. We have our aquatics programs that are starting up on February 8th at Ferndale High School. These programs include Saturday lap swim sessions as well as 2 water aerobics sessions. Those water aerobic sessions sold out in a day each time that we open one of them up, but there are still available spots for the drop-in sessions for the lap swim. So anybody that's interested in that can check the website for that as well. And then finally, we are currently seeking sponsorships for our Geary Park Skate Jam, which is scheduled to take place on June 7th and includes skate park competitions, family events, food, music, and more. Any businesses or anybody that's interested in becoming a sponsor for any of the activities that we have going on out there should contact our department, specifically me. And that's it.
And then Chief Robinson is going to give us an update on the new ambulance.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So, as the community may remember, we purchased a new ambulance with ARPA funds. It was ordered in March or spring of 2022. A lot of delays because of supply chain, recalls, on and on and on. We went down I sent a crew down last Wednesday to do final inspection with the intention of picking it up and bringing it home. But when we went down there, we do a very thorough inspection because when we're spending that money, we want to do diligence and ensure it's right. They found a couple things that they wanted addressed, so the manufacturer is addressing them, no additional cost to the city to make it right to our specifications. So it will delay us getting the ambulance by a couple weeks. It's estimated about 3-week delay right now for us to get it, but then they will be delivering it to us, so we don't have to go down there again. We were going to be the ones driving it back, but now they will do the delivery to us. So I'll keep you posted as far as that, but we wanted to make sure it's right before we took the delivery. We didn't want to accept anything less, so there's that. So it's good news that it's done finally, but a little delayed because we wanted them to make it absolutely right. And the other thing I want to point out is more and more residents are starting to use our virtual home safety inspection, and some residents had requested smoke detectors because they realized they needed some. We received our shipment from the state last week, and so we were able to catch up the installs for people that were waiting. So those are there, so we have them there. So if anybody else realizes or wants to request smoke detectors, we do have them now. We can't come and install those into your home. So they are just smoke detector. They are not carbon monoxide detector. At this time, we don't have any sponsorship for those, but we'd be happy to help you with those.
And another election update from our city clerk.
I know there's been a lot of discussion about the May 6th election tonight, but because it is an odd number election year, we do have an election in November as well, on November 4th. So on that ballot will be the position for mayor, which is a 2-year term, and there will be 2 city council positions for 4 years. So if you're interested in running for office, we do have candidate packets that are ready at the city clerk's office. And if you have questions about running, you can give me a call. My number is 248-336-4366. As part of that process, you do need to collect 100 to 150 signatures from Ferndale voters.
And then lastly, our Human Resources Director, Dan Jacey, will provide a recruitment update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I want to let the residents know that a week from Thursday on February 6th, we will be holding a city manager candidate meet and greet between 5 and 5:45. Residents will get to meet the finalists, which are Vester Davis from the city of Springfield, Michigan, James Krazan from the city of Ferndale, Michigan, and Colleen O'Toole from the city of Saline, Michigan. We're encouraging feedback from the residents that will be used and available for our council to make their decision. From 6 o'clock that night, the city council members will be interviewing each of the 3 candidates here in an open public meeting, and they will be making their final decision on the city council meeting on February 10th. So, thank you.
So with that, Mayor, we'll turn it back over to you guys.
Where did I start last time? Okay, then I'm going over here. All right, Mayor Pro Tem, you're up.
I have nothing further tonight.
Councilmember Kelly?
Just want to say welcome back, Emmanuel. Congrats on the new addition to your family. And thank you, Chief Robinson. Good catch. You're always keeping everyone on their toes, and you're all about those efficiencies. And we see you, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Councilmember Polika?
I have nothing this evening.
Johnson?
Also want to welcome back Manuel, Mazel Tov. Hope you are getting some sleep. I think, the only thing that I would, reiterate is, I'm looking forward to going out, talking to residents and, explaining what's going on and, just, doing the thing, getting it done, getting over the finish line.
Yes, congratulations, Emmanuel. Don't leave without showing me a picture of that baby. Okay. I'll start with, we've all heard it, the Giggle Pickles. I am going to state it again. They're so excited about going to the championship. And I just want you to know that there will be a fundraiser for the Ferndale Middle School robotics team, Giggle Pickles, February 13th, 4 to 8 p.m. at Treat Dreams. And then 4 to 7 p.m., the business also sharing that space with Treat Dreams, Heroes and Villains. Their special will be a Giggle Pickle sandwich, chips, and pineapple pickle sorbet. I don't know what that looks like or what that is, but you have to mention Giggle Pickles at the checkout, but go out and support them. I think that it's really exciting that the middle school is in that championship. And I just want to push, and I want to push supporting them. Also, I want to congratulate the seniors at Ferndale High School because last Thursday marked their kickoff for the 4-month journey between now and graduation with the senior pinning ceremony. So it was really nice to see the seniors get pinned. I got to pin my own senior that night. So 4 more months to go before they head on to a new endeavor. I want to thank council for your thoughtful and diligent conversations. We all are up here for the same reason. We're trying to do the best for the community, and I appreciate every one of you for fighting for what you believe in. And I'm glad that we don't have to take any of this personally. We know you stand for what you believe in. That's what the voters voted you in for, us in for, and we now need to move forward to continue doing the best work possible that we can for our residents. I just also want to state something that I saw on social media, and I'm not on it much, but I just wanted to add some clarity because I think it's really important, especially now, that there be some clarity as far as information that's sent out. I think there was a comment regarding the city not providing its due diligence as far as focusing on and advocating for and lobbying for statutory revenue sharing. And I want you to know for a fact it's been happening from all areas. I know for a fact that Mayor Pro Tem Mikulski has worked with different council municipalities with resolutions to stress the importance of statutory revenue sharing and has generated support from, I don't remember how many, but I'm sure it was quite a few.
Yeah.
And from that, from her lead, I know that at our last SOCMA dinner, I was able to gather about 13 mayors, South Oakland County mayors, to sign a petition saying, and that we sent to the governor and to our legislatures regarding supporting statutory revenue sharing as well. We're not sitting here doing nothing, but it's going to take our legislators to make that move. Now, also, I sit on the Board of Trustees with the Michigan Municipal League, and I can tell you that they are always lobbying for statutory revenue sharing and always pulling us in to reach out to our legislatures in order to do that. In fact, there was a whole campaign at the last, at the time before last, at the last convention, where we had all kinds of cards that we filled out that our lobbyists from the Michigan Municipal League, that team, they were all just kind of gathered everything, all the cards that we filled out, and they submitted those to our legislators on our behalf. So I want you to know that we are still working on it, and I will continue working on it because we need it.
I want to add to that, even I was on the phone texting, our state reps and senators on the last day of the session last year. I mean, asking them to please get that over the finish line. And I think many of us know what happened, but nothing got over the finish line.
Exactly.
So that was very unfortunate, but, I was working closely till the very last moment that I could, trying to get something passed.
And you were also updating us as far as what you were hearing.
I was sending them screenshots of what I was getting. It just.
And I think, Madam Mayor, I think you've hit on something really important just for the public to understand is a lot of what we do isn't visible, right? Like a lot of our day-to-day council responsibilities, those aren't in the public eye. We're each individually talking to colleagues on other councils in other cities. We're talking to colleagues at the county government, our state legislators. I might have a 30-minute text back and forth with Senator McMorrow, but that's not a public activity, right? Like, you don't know that I'm doing that, but I'm doing that. And that's because that's what we're here to do, right? So, stressing that a lot of our day-to-day council work this is only this is like the council sessions are a tip of the iceberg, right? Yeah. This is when you see it. This is what you see sticking out of the water. The whole rest of the week, a lot of our free time is spent emailing and drafting ordinances and all the stuff that just doesn't happen in the public eye. And that includes advocacy. It includes talking to the state legislature. It includes talking to people in the governor's office and saying, you've got to help us. You've got to do something. You can't leave us in this, in this position. You need to help. So a lot of what we just isn't visible. But it is being done, believe it or not, it is being done.
Absolutely is being done, and I think we all have relationships with all of our legislatures, and I know for a fact that they reach out to me via text, via phone call, or on any given day, so we have access to them, so we're going to continue trying, and we're trying to work hard, and as Councilmember Johnson stated, it's not always visible to you, but we are out there working. I know you all are tired. It's 9 o'clock. So with that being said, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned at 9 o'clock. Thank you.